Microsoft basically announced mass layoffs on July 2nd, which is impacting many areas of the company's sprawling businesses, including Xbox. Overall, Microsoft is said to be cutting 4% of its staff worldwide, which affects about 9,000 people total. So, Microsoft as a whole is making layoffs across the board, but
Right.
it's affecting the Xbox brand the most, because all these studios and stuffs are getting hit. So I'm going to list off some IPs and then I'm going to ask you guys a question. So these are some of the studios and IPs that are affected, right? You have Raven Software, you have Turn 10 Studios, who makes Forza, and nearly 50% of their staff has been laid off. It's affecting Rare, and their Everwild game is cancelled. A new ZeniMax MMO has been cancelled by the developers of Elder Scrolls Online. That's completely cancelled. As I said before, Perfect Dark has been cancelled from the initiative. High Moon, which is a studio that supports Call of Duty, they do some supporting development on the Call of Duty games. I think particularly Call of Duty Warzone. So they're impacted. Some of their staff has been laid off. Sledgehammer Games is affected. Blizzard and their IP Warcraft Rumble is heavily affected by this. The Halo studio is affected, and Romero Games has been affected, and they've had to cancel funding for their new game. So that's just listing off some of the the major areas that have been affected in the Xbox division. So I want to ask you guys, based on that, right? What do these layoffs mean for the future of Xbox? So I have to go to Anthony first because I love his analytical brain on these topics. So, Anthony, what does this mean for the future of Xbox? Hearing this news.
I mean, to be honest with you, I definitely read the statements. I definitely seen some of the things Xbox just made, some of the other news that they just released like 2 weeks before all this happened. And then, of course, like you said, looking at the grand scheme of things, what Microsoft is doing, to me, this just seems like a Microsoft move. And they're like forcing every division to make cuts. Like this AI shit is, pretty much, forcing them to get rid of like middle management, forcing them to get rid of some roles that have become redundant now because AI replaced them. And this Microsoft, so they got some version of AI that's not, not being used by consumers. So it's hard to say, oh, this AI ain't really doing nothing, when we using a commercial version of ChatGPT, not to say that it's not powerful, but we don't know what the hell they got up in there, man. Like doing all this stuff. Like they probably got some next level shit up in there. That's not, the public won't see a version of that for like a year, maybe, maybe, we're like 1 year behind what they're doing, internally. So I think that's what we're seeing. I think we're seeing a company that realizes, unfortunately, you can't run a like I saw something that said Microsoft had 200,000, 250,000, 40,000 employees. Like in the age of AI, that's crazy. When you think about it in the grand scheme of things, like that's a lot of bloat. So what's happening is like Microsoft is finding a way to be a more 2025 company, which means efficient, smooth, streamlined, and just making money. And the only way you can do that is to slim down, unfortunately. And I think that's what we're seeing now. As far as like the future of Xbox, I mean, they came out with their messaging a couple weeks ago. You see what they're doing with the handheld. I think what the future of Xbox is Roku. Xbox wants to be the Roku of gaming. When you turn on your TV, what you see? You see the Roku dashboard. But from that Roku dashboard, you can go to Xbox, you can go to PlayStation, you can go to YouTube, you can go to Twitch, you can go to Xbox wants that front end OS that they're building. That's why they're placing so much on their mobile OS and everything like that. They want that OS that they're building, and they want Game Pass to be part of multiple machines. They want that shit on multiple machines. And so they're changing as a company, unfortunately. And that means slimming down, and so that's the future of Xbox. So to me, I see the future of Microsoft and the future of Xbox are kind of like going one way and Xbox going the other, because the future of Microsoft is like slim, this, that, and the third. The future of Xbox is one OS everywhere. It's like everywhere on our own hardware, on other people's shit too, like everywhere. And so I don't see this as like a Xbox dying moment. I see this as an Xbox reinventing himself moment. And then unfortunately, who they're going to be in the next 10 years is a lot different from what was required to operate in the last 5. And that's what we're seeing, a mix of that and the Microsoft mandate at the same time. And unfortunately, it is what it is. I did read Phil Spencer's letter, and that shit was kind of crazy, man. I ain't gonna lie. That shit was, I'm like, did the AI write that? Because that shit was crazy. He's like, yeah, we doing better than ever. But we gotta let y'all go. I'm like, wait, what? What? Like, who wrote this? Maybe Copilot ain't the way to go, bro. I don't know. I don't know, man. Copilot wrote that, man. So I do think messaging and how they communicate, unfortunately, is terrible. And look, this might not all be Phil Spencer's fault. You know what I'm saying? Like he's getting the top down. They telling him he got to make the moves, he got to make the cuts, he got to get to a number. And so unfortunately, he has to start looking at the spreadsheets and figuring out who that got to be. But how you talk about it means everything. How you talk about it means everything. And yeah, man, that's my take. My take is the future of Xbox is still very much the future of Xbox. I'm not saying it's bright, because I don't know if it's bright. The verdict is still out on that. You know what I'm saying? Being the Roku of video games, it's a tall order. You know what I'm saying? So the verdict is very much still out on that front. But it's unfortunate so many people had to lose their jobs in the middle of all this change, man. So that's my take. That's my take, man.
Yeah. You said something that I agree with in terms of streamlining, because like we got to remember, like Microsoft just acquired all these gaming publishers, right? They acquired ZeniMax, they acquired Blizzard, they acquired what was the other one?
Bethesda, Activision.
Yeah, Bethesda, Activision, right? So with all of these companies they acquired, a bunch of new staff comes with them. Like they inherited so many new staff, and it's not even just the companies they acquired. Like when they acquired the Call of Duty IP, there's like so many side studios that work on that game that aren't even, with Activision. Like they're just subsidiaries or whatever that help to develop Call of Duty, right? So they inherited so much staff, and they already did have a batch of layoffs, I think, a year ago. So they've already laid off some, but it's like they still have so much staff And it's like I think they're just looking at it like we can't. This isn't
slow
sustainable.
down, man.
You know,
They
this
big,
isn't
bro. I
sustainable.
looked it up. I was looking the other day. I was like, how many staff do these guys got? And I saw 240,000. I was like, damn, yo, they got 250,000 people working.
And it is sad because these are people's jobs. These are people's livelihoods, you know, so it's sad. But it's like every company is doing this right now because of this AI stuff. Like you mentioned, like all companies are kind of downsizing. They're looking at ways to cut, you know, spending and stuff. So it's just the reality we're in, sadly. So yeah, I agree with that point.
I think, well, let me mention this one thing.
Yeah.
Microsoft, they're bold. I'm going to say they're bold because they're very much a rip the Band-Aid off company. Like, they have no problem being first to rip the Band-Aid off. Like, fuck it. We got to get rid of niggas. Like, you know, my bad. I ain't going to say it like that, but but they have no problem doing that. People act like, people treat them like, it's something called the innovator's dilemma. Like, because they're first, they're going to get all the knives. They're going to get all the knives. But if you're watching this and you're a PlayStation fan or whatever you are, a Nintendo fan, stop thinking this ain't going to happen for them too. Because it's coming. It's just that Microsoft don't care about their public image. Unfortunately. They can care. They can give two shits about how the public perceives them. Sony is way different. Sony cares about how their fan base looks at them and views them. Sony really, really, really does. They pay attention to that shit. I've been looking over the years, like Sony they make very strategic moves to make sure that they always have in control of the story. They always want to be in control of the narrative. And it's worked out for them. Look where we at. Because for the longest, people was like, oh yeah, Microsoft putting their games everywhere. Ha ha ha. What just got announced today? I don't know if that's on the list to talk about today.
Helldivers 2. Yep.
Look what just happened. It's starting to look like they're gonna do the same thing, but guess what? They were so in control of their narrative. Everybody don't think that though. Everybody don't think that they're doing the same thing. When you listen to the financial calls, the CEO is literally saying it. He's saying, "Yo, we got to go multi-platform." But when you go to the message boards, they're like, "Nah, man, that's not what Sony meant. Sony meant just PC, just Steam, and that's it. And Nintendo, you know, da 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 da." Come on, man. Who we? Y'all, come on now. We talking about numbers, man. We talking about numbers. You know, what's that AI joint? He's like, we talking about practice? Like, we talking about numbers. Y'all really think this company that makes billions of dollars not moving that way? Yeah, they're going to move slowly because they still want to be in control of the narrative. But you're fooling yourself if you think that there are not cuts coming to Sony. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Sony, one of the largest companies, so they're just going to stay fat and stay as a corporation, stay fat, burning billions of dollars in overhead every month just so they can make y'all feel good? Are we kidding? Like, I don't know, man. That's it. That's just like, everybody's going to do this. That's my whole point. Microsoft is just the one to be like, all right, we don't care how we proceed. Unfortunately, they don't care how they proceed. We've seen this for years. They don't care. So,
yeah, I mean, you know, that, like I said, like Microsoft isn't the only corporation making layoffs. Like, it's happening everywhere, like in a lot of industries, but in the tech industry, it's happening a lot. So, you know, if it happened on Sony's side of things, I wouldn't be shocked, and that would also be sad. But let's hear from Mr. Richard Bailey Jr. So, Richard, like, you know, what do these layoffs mean for the future of Xbox?
Well, first and foremost, let me say the layoffs, it's very unfortunate. I've been to a couple of events this year. I went to GDC back in March. I went to Summer Game Fest, back in June. So when I went to GDC, Microsoft actually had an Xbox event there, like an Xbox preview event where you get to play games and you talk to a lot of PR. A lot of those PR I've exchanged emails with over the years. So having the opportunity to meet some of them in person finally was great. But then to hear that a lot of them are also now no longer without a job, that's unfortunate because, I know one individual in particular that announced it earlier on Twitter. And I said, I do know that guy because I actually saw him at GDC back in March and was talking about what Xbox had planned as far as what their plans were going to be for around their showcase in June. So it is unfortunate to hear about that. I will make this comment, however, with Microsoft, as far as everything is concerned. I know obviously the focus is on what has been happening with Xbox, but this entire year, Microsoft has been doing massive layoffs. So it's not just, not just affecting the gaming division, but in particularly with Xbox, it is unfortunate to see this. Like you guys both said, I think this is an issue of Microsoft acquiring too many things when they decided to acquire Activision, Bethesda, and then they didn't really have a way to manage any of that stuff. Because if I'm not mistaken, Matt Booty, his job is to monitor and communicate with these studios. So I would say when you have to make all these cuts, the leadership is to blame for this as well in terms of what are they doing, how are they handling the budgets, and obviously we know that several years ago, there was a pandemic that kind of changed the way you work. A lot of people were working remotely. You've heard stories about Microsoft having people working remotely, and then a lot of companies asking those workers to come back into the office. So you can factor some of that stuff in there as well. But however, I think this is about the management of the studios. And I know that initially, Phil Spencer was under a lot of pressure. In the past, he said a lot of things about he wanted to compete with Sony. He wanted to win, do whatever he can to win. And I feel like his boss, Nadella, gave him opportunities by allowing him to acquire all these studios. But again, the question that we had, every time we would go to E3 or we're watching an E3 presentation, you see, okay, this game looks cool. And then you don't see the game again for several years. I'm like, where the hell, what the hell happened to this game? There are several games that was shown at that 2020 Xbox showcase event that we still haven't seen any updates on. Now, Everwild getting canceled, that made sense because we hadn't seen that game in almost 5 years. The Perfect Dark game, however, when you get to that, Gary, that is, I don't understand that because last year, and I was at that Xbox showcase last year in person in LA, that was probably one of Microsoft's best showcases where you got to see all these games they were working on. But that game in particular, a lot of people were very excited. They're like, some people like, that can't be real. That has to be fake. But that game, they showed us gameplay. So to hear now it's canceled, it absolutely sucks. Now, obviously, it's been in development for a long time, but it's unfortunate. But to go to the point of, as you asked, Gary, what does this mean for Xbox? I would say, yes, Xbox is making changes. They obviously want to implement AI better into their ecosystem. But I will also say that, in my opinion, the future of Xbox is as a third-party publisher. I don't think, I know they're talking about the handheld now. They're going to be talking about the next Xbox. But honestly, this company is headed in direction of, we're just going to make game software. And you see that. Gears of War Reloaded, which the beta was released a couple of weeks ago. I played that on PlayStation. That's coming to PlayStation in August. Obviously, Starfield, a game that is still on Xbox that they haven't really announced any updates for. I'm pretty sure that's coming to PlayStation as well. So I feel like when they had that whole thing where they started out where we only have 4 games we're announcing that are coming to other platforms, that was the beginning of this because we all knew it's not going to be only 4 games. So yes, more games will be coming to other platforms, which is fine. They have to make money. But again, my whole thing with Microsoft is if you want to acquire these studios, that's fine, but you should have some type of plan as to what you are going to do from a strategy standpoint. You can't just acquire all this stuff and then hope it works out because that's not good. But it is unfortunate for the layoffs. I do hope everybody gets on their feet. And I will say this because I currently am working at a contractor at my job. I've been working at a contractor for the most part of a lot of the jobs that I've had over the several years. So I know that contract can end at any point in time. I know what it's like when the job ends. Now you have to worry about bills, so on and so forth. So I fully understand what these people are going through. And yes, it does make you concerned about stability in the job market, in the gaming industry specifically, but in any industry. But the gaming industry, obviously, that is always an issue that comes up. We know some people that we know who no longer have jobs that worked in that industry, so on and so forth. So it's a tough industry to get into, but it's also tough to actually keep a job in that industry as well. So that's a word of advice to anybody that does go into the industry. But yeah, we'll see what happens with Microsoft. But I mean, I still will support whatever games they're releasing, but clearly they have a lot of issues they need to figure out. And I know Phil Spencer, this is the last point I will make. Phil Spencer did say at this last Xbox showcase, next year is, I believe, the 25th anniversary of the Xbox. He said, yeah, we're going to be having a new Gears game. We're going to have another Forza game. And of course, Fable, right? Okay, I'll believe that when I see it. But we'll see what happens.
Oh, yeah, they're not in a good position to make promises at the moment. I feel like in the future, they need to just develop the game, finish it first, and then announce it. Like they shouldn't even announce future projects anymore. But